Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. I am back in my home office, and I'm chatting with this gentleman here from across the pond, Simon McMahon, Director of Operations at the Wyboston Lakes Resort in the United Kingdom. Hi, Simon.
Good afternoon or good morning. I don't know where we are, but good afternoon, I'll say from here.
Yep. So Simon and I met 3 years ago?
In Belgium, yes.
Belgium. Was that 2020 or 2019?
Let's do it 2019.
Okay, 2019. Yeah, it wasn't 2020. And we at an IAC conference in Belgium. And so as the Director of Operations and with what I do with food and beverage, we hit it off. So yeah, we still need to work on that project. Okay, so I saw Simon last week, and he and his chef and we were outside chatting, conversing about food allergies and dietary restrictions, and all their sustainability efforts came up in that conversation. And I'm like, okay, what are you doing next week at 5:00? And that is why we are here today, and we left that conversation to run into the IAC awards ceremony, and he get award for his sustainability efforts, or the resort's sustainability efforts. So I really am blown away by what you all are doing. So I want everybody to hear and see. So let's start with that award that you won. What did you present at IAC, and what session was that with Kama? And tell us how you won it.
Yeah, so we picked up the IAC Innovations Award last week when we were at the Rome-Durham event. And it was great because we got to present against 10 other businesses. And what our presentation, our innovation is our overall round scheme on food waste and how we impact on everything that we do. And what it was is the way we tackle it in total. And we've been working on this for years. It's not come together in a short period, but what we've managed to do in our biggest conference center on site, which, just to put into perspective, probably does about anywhere between 1,000 covers a day and 1,500 covers a day. It's our busiest site. So food waste is huge. Production on that area is massive. And what we've been able to do is create a full cycle sustainable project there where people can plant trees when they're staying over based on the room nights that they've stayed for. The food waste is then reused in a number of ways, which I can touch on in a moment and give you a full cycle circle of that. But what we were presenting in IAC was that we've now made that venue as a zero food waste leave site, and any food waste that we can't reuse for any other purpose goes into a food compactor, which then turns into soil, which we now go full circle and plant on the trees, place under the trees. The guests, in theory, have contributed with their stays, which allows us to create this all natural full cycle circle when it comes to food waste and trees and bedrooms and accommodation. So yeah, I think the judges quite like that, and they honoured us with the award. Yeah. Right.
That is just so cool. I mean, it's full circle, right? And I think the important part is that you said no food waste is leaving the property.
That's correct. Yeah. We can stand here today and tell you that. It's taken a fair amount of time of researching, of trialing, to the point where we've got specialists in for soil production, because we were producing probably just short of a ton of food waste in a month in that venue. And we looked at how do we get that reduced down. So we looked at a number of ways. And we spent a lot of time over the last few years working with the chefs, working on production, using the pandemic to streamline our businesses and learn from all those impacts. But at the same time, we were still producing high volumes of food waste. And what we wanted to do was we had to ask the question of what is the byproduct of being able to put it into food compactors, and we were still going to produce 80% soil waste. So we had to make sure that we could use that soil. Otherwise, we were just left with what we could do with that. And we had to get some tests done and checks done what grounds it could go on, where it could go. And at the moment, we're continuing with those tests because we also have a golf course on site. And I suppose one day we'd like to be able to use it there as well as using on our trees, on our grounds, but we'd like to use it in other areas of the business as well.
Wow. So And so you were producing that much waste, and now you've reduced it to that it's being used in other parts of the property. And I know that you, in our conversation, you were talking about how, because you brought in the soil experts to talk about it too, because it wasn't necessarily good for the trees what you were doing, right?
Yeah, that's right. So because it's too rich. So the food production that comes off and the soil that comes off can be too rich. So we had to make sure that we were reducing that down. Now it's fine for some areas and it was fine for the plants, but what it can't be used for is it's too rich for golf courses, because if we put it onto the golf course, it's so good that it's almost going to make the grass grow quicker, which then in turn we have to cut more often, we have to put more people out there. So that kind of impacts us. But what we're doing at the moment is working with some specialists to see if we can reduce down the quality, add something to it so that we can use it on all areas of the facility. So I think that's something we're exploring at the moment, just to maximize that. Because we also have 2 other huge venues on site. They're not as big as this one, and we're in the process of bringing them online. So we wanted to get this as a test base, but we'd like to, over the course of this year, be able to say no food waste leaves our premises, because we are a resort. So we've got a hotel, golf and spa, and we've also got a large executive style premium conference and event center. And so we'd also like to bring them onto this. So we used our biggest venue as our trial, and it's gone so well. The team have adopted it. The team love it. We've got kitchen porters in there who are just taking control of all of this, and they like the fact that they're getting involved. The gardeners are then collecting it in the morning and distributing it on the ground. So there's been a real team involvement, and I think they're quite proud of the fact that this is working so well.
It's mind-boggling, but I do like the fact that you also said that it wasn't something that you could just figure out overnight, and it's taken the groundskeepers and the cooks in the kitchen and the executive chefs and everybody to look at it.
Yeah, even our property director, our maintenance team, everyone's had to get involved in some way, shape or form to make this work. So I'm telling you, it's taken us over a year to get the right machinery in the right size, work out on return on investments, because at the same time, we're still a business. We still can't go pumping loads of money into these projects. We need to make sure that there's going to be some type of payback for us, and to have the reduction in the vehicles coming to site, collections, the cost of getting food waste off, because food waste is so expensive, because it's so heavy. So to be able to do that is great for us and great for our guests, because any guest who's going to that venue or booker can say to whoever pays the bill or signs off on the check, we've chosen a sustainable venue where, as well as all the other things we do, but there's 0 food waste leaves our premises and it's all reused.
Okay, and I just want to clarify, the word booker means event planner.
That's
event organizer. Yep, across this side of the pond. Yes. Okay, so you would never have thought to think about, because you just said it, the amount of money or the people transporting the waste from your property to wherever it needs to be disposed of. I mean, that's part of that whole cycle of reducing waste and sustainability across the board, because then you're not using as much gas, you're not emissions from the cars, etc., and that you're keeping it right there on property is huge.
Yeah, and so as well as food waste, we spent a lot of time looking at other areas of our waste production, and we've done a lot of the tricks that probably everyone else has done, where we've put special bins into locations in meeting rooms, whether those are paper and cardboard and general waste. We've looked at bedrooms. We've looked at the bin liners to make sure they're not plastic, because we've obviously done so much work over the last few years on reducing down single-use plastics. So we've done a lot of work with that. So that overall waste contribution that we're trying to put out, 1, is very expensive, but 2, also we want to do our bit and make sure. So we've been 0 to landfill for over 7 years. So that's making sure that none of our
0 to the landfill.
Yeah, so we don't put any of our waste to landfill. So we make sure we work with waste contractors that are not using this for landfill, that are segregating. We segregate on site. We have separate skips for glass, card, for paper, for general waste, and obviously for food. So we have to do a lot of work with that. But ultimately, that's part of our goal as a business to be sustainable in everything that we do. And waste was a big project for us. That's one of the projects we've tirelessly worked on, but we'll continue to work on, because we're not quite there yet. We've still got 2 other venues we need to get off the food waste. And also, I think there's other areas which we can definitely, I think as technology comes along as well, we're quite keen adversaries of using technology where it's possible and looking at new techniques. And that's one of the areas that we'll continue to look into as we go forward.
Okay, so, and we're going to get back to some original questions too, but online I found your 4-year green journey roadmap.
Yes.
And so that the food waste part is part of that. And so, and it's a net, and that's also ties into your net zero journey.
Yeah, so I think like any business, you've got to set a target, otherwise what's the point? We need to have something to aim for. And looking at it now, we've set a target of by 2040, we'll be net zero. And people think that's a long way away, that's quite vague. Yeah, exactly. And with everything that comes into that, all the different types that we've got to cover off, from the energy that we have on site to the out production that we've got to the guests and suppliers that we use, there's quite a big network that we work with. And we've got 300 employees on site. On a given day, we can have well over 2,000 people on the premises because we've got serviced office facilities that have 600 people. We've got conference space that can hold over 1,000 people. So all of that falls into that. But what we've done is we've set this target. And over the next 4 years, we've also set a green energy roadmap. And what we want to be within 4 years is we want to be providing all of our own energy. So phase 1, which is this year. And just to put into perspective how big we are, we're the same size as Hyde Park in London. So if you've ever been to Hyde Park in London, it's huge. And we're similar footprint to them when it comes to the size of our facilities. We've got lakes on site, otherwise we'd struggle to be called Wyboston Lakes. But yes, we do have our own lakes. So this year, phase 1 is we're covering our main building in solar panels. So we're going to put solar panels on the entire roof that will take that venue onto that energy grid. So that we will supply its own energy. In 2024, we'll then put infrastructure into our facilities so that we've got almost a network of battery storage of when we've got overloads in certain areas, we can power other facilities on site, other offices, other buildings, because we've also got a lot of sub-buildings that we rent out to private contractors, to other businesses on the site as well. And then in that also, we'll also cover our other 2 buildings with solar panels as well. So that's great. But as probably you're fully aware, the UK weather and solar panels don't always go hand in hand. So we're also looking at things like water source heat pumps and big turbines as well. So wind turbines. So yeah, we're in the process because they're in our 2025 plan and currently planning permissions going in for those. And then we'll put those in. So the aim is by 2026, we'll have completed this full infrastructure on site so that we can provide and supply all of our own green energy. So that works towards our net zero. So that's almost like our scope 1 facilities. And then within that, any equipment or anything on site is continually being reviewed. So we're making sure we're moving to electrical equipment. We've not got gas equipment on site because we won't be able to supply that when we hit that 2026 period. So we want to be able to continue on that. So everything we look at, everything we're putting in has to fit in with this phased green energy roadmap so that by the time we get to 2026, everything's connected onto that works for us and works really well. So that's the biomass boilers, our spa, which currently has a pool. So we need to be able to heat that productively with the energy that we're producing. So everything has to be assessed and it's continually being assessed. And then when stuff breaks or when it needs to be replaced, we're replacing it. We won't do it for the sake of it because actually the impact is bigger if we do it that way. So when people look and they might see it's having trucks on site that are diesel run, but yeah, if that breaks, then yeah, we'll replace that with an electric vehicle. But what we won't do is just scrap it or get rid of it because again, that's a complete waste and that doesn't kind of fit with our green plans either. So yeah, everything that gets replaced gets looked at. So that kind of is circling that sense.
Wow. I mean, I think Chef was telling me that you're also looking at putting solar panels on the lake, floating solar panels.
Yeah, so floating solar, because again, we've looked at, so our property director has looked at all the capacities and what we can do, but we want to put planning in for this as well, because we have a lot of land on site and we don't know what the future holds for us, whether we will sell that land or build more conference space. And what we want to be able to do is have a backup, because what we can't do is go, we've got this great green plan in 2026, then, we're going to build some more buildings, but we're not set up for that. So how do we facilitate that? Because we've got so much land on site that one day we would like to expand and we would like to keep our options open. So yeah, with floating solar, the footprint's really small on the lake. There is a lot of background checks that have to go on with something like that, but it's something we're progressing really well with. And it's one of those that we just want to make sure that it's available should we need it, because if we ever do put anything in place, it still needs to stick with our philosophies, our plans, our values and everything else. So yeah, so that's one thing.
Well, and the thought process that's gone behind this is really impressive, because it's not only thinking about what you're doing right now, but really being thoughtful about it to 2040, to 17 years. Is that right? 17 years from now. what it's going to be. And technology will change, of course, in the next 17 years. But I love that you're putting all of those steps in place to think that way. So,
yeah.
And I don't think we planners or bookers, we don't think about that aspect of what our venues are potentially doing. So I'm going to ask this question, then I want to go back to something else that you had said, but how do you sell this to planners, to bookers? And what do you want them to ask you, or what should they be asking other venues that are not up this far ahead about the sustainability practices?
I think it goes back to your original point, which is like trying to think ahead. I think what as a venue, you always want to be one step ahead. You always want to be thinking ahead. You always want to be planning ahead, and you always want to be future-proofing anything you do, whether that's here with green energy or whether that's just with your meeting room in general. You want to make sure you've got the best technology or the next item that's going to come on the list, because that's what the bookers, the event planners are going to be looking for. How we communicate this through is we've got a great in-house marketing team. Social media, as you're experiencing with platforms, is the best way for us to communicate through to planners. But one thing that we made very clear is that while the planners and the bookers are key to us, it's actually the delegates that they normally retrieve all the feedback from. So within all of our venues, there is these huge sustainability walls. And within these walls, there's really key, there's just 9 key points of things that we're doing, of things that we're working on. There's the accreditations, and we're quite keen that we go for 1 or 2 accreditations. We don't just litter the walls with, 20 or 30 accreditations. We've been quite key on the ones that we pick, and whether that's like the IAC one or the UK-based one, we've tried to make sure we just got a couple of those, and they're visible. They're massively visible. The delegates can see them. Majority of our bookers or event planners come to our venues for show rounds, so we're talking it, we're living it, and we're showing them what we're up to. And then the delegates can see it. And they are interactive walls, so you can touch them. It's very cleverly done in the branding and the wording. It's a little bit risky. It's a little bit, we're not going to, as you pointed out to our comment before, we're not going to apologize for anything we're doing that's working towards our sustainability plans and projects, or we're not going to apologize for that. We'll work with you, but you need to see what we're doing. And so that's how we've communicated it. And I think being a little bit quirky and a little bit risky has made us stand out a little bit. But I think we're quite bold, we're quite brave, and we're not afraid to try and do something that's within our means, but allows us to stand out a little bit. And that's the key bit, really.
And are you finding bookers, planners really intrigued by what you're doing and choosing you because of what you're doing?
Yeah, without a doubt. We've got a big client coming in on Monday for a presentation on this, just to see what we're doing. So they've specifically asked to come onto site and be presenting with all of the things that we're doing. So that's the food waste, the room to grow, the energy plans, because I think what we're seeing now is that we're kind of coming back to a normal booking window where people are booking more in advance. That short-term business has started to disappear. People are getting more confident, but they're also wanting to make sure that they can share this confidence with their delegates. And obviously delegates are coming through at a younger age now, and bookers are coming through at a significantly younger age. So this is one of the key things that they're looking for, because the world that they've been brought up in is completely different now. And this is a key element. And what we've had to start doing now is, so this is great, I'm talking to you about things we've done, but the next bit is, what are we doing now? Because we've got to move on. We've got to do things that are quicker. And one of the areas that we're definitely looking at the moment is carbon footprinting, because we want to be able to provide people with an event carbon print figure for their event. And we're not being asked for that, but we know we're going to be asked for it. So we're preparing ourselves for it. And that's the next thing we want to do.
So are you doing that with your food as well?
Yeah.
Carbon footprint. Yep.
We're not doing it yet. We have got presentations next week, because we're trying to find a supplier that can do it all for us. We're trying to partner with somebody that can do it all, because what we found is, because it's quite vague and there's a little bit of guidance, but there's no laws on any of this yet or anything like that. Suspecting that's going to come out soon, where they say by this date, you've got to provide carbon footprinting figures, especially on menus. But putting that on menus is our aim for the next few months. We want to get that in place, because we already do calories, we already do allergens. So carbon footprint, and that allows bookers and delegates to make sensible choices. They can make choices based on the impact that dish will have, and they can see that. And we've already seen that with calories, where we're putting calories on things. People generally make a decision based on that calorie content to what they're going to eat. And I thoroughly believe they'll make the same decisions when they can see the carbon footprint impact on their dishes as well.
Okay, so you might get some pushback. I mean, I'm sure by like, hey, that's a lot of information on a menu.
Yeah.
Right. And the four of us had that conversation kind of last week too about labeling of allergens and things like that. And just for everybody to know, because Wyboston is in the UK and was part of the EU, the regulation about allergen labeling came down in 2014.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep. And it requires all unpackaged food to have information readily available on what allergens are in it. And it doesn't need to be labeled particularly right then and there on the thing, but you have to have a book, right?
That's right. Yeah, the law states upon request. So the law states all allergen have to be available upon request, and that allergen matrix has to cover the 14 key allergens in the EU. Most businesses in the EU will put it on their menu just for the ease of being able to have people make choices without having to raise their hand or find a server or anything like that. So that's the key ones. That's got to go on every menu. Anything you display that goes out has to have that broken down to the point that if you can't provide that information, the dish has to be taken off the menu or off the buffet, whatever you're serving. And it has to be clear and concise, as well as labeling for things like vegans and vegetarians, dairy-free. Well, dairy-free is in the allergens, but yeah. So.
Yeah. And then your law says you have to label for the calories, which is a whole nother conversation. And I know, and I told you guys this in the States, if your restaurant has more than 20 locations, you have to provide that caloric information, all of the nutritional information. But if it's under 20, you don't have to do that. But you're doing it as a single venue, having to provide that information.
Yeah, so we fall into the category because of a couple of things. One, we have over 250 employees, so we have to do it. So that's why all big chains have to do it, as well as like individual companies like ourselves. So your smaller restaurants who are just single use don't have to do it. The only thing is, I think they've found that it's beneficial to do it because every other restaurant is doing it. And as a consumer or customer, you don't know the reasoning behind it. So, you're not going to clue yourself up on all these laws. So majority of restaurants include all calories onto their menus as well. So your point being, will menus get cluttered? Yeah, they're already starting to get cluttered. I think a lot of people are looking at the presentation of these, making sure the back has matrices on or information that's provided. And so... and then obviously we've got Natasha's Law as well, which is on any items that someone can put into a takeaway container that has a lid on that they can take out, has to not only have the allergens labeled, but has to have every single ingredient that's in the item labeled as well. So that creates a lot of challenges when we're doing food concepts outside, or if we're doing events where people can package stuff up before they leave. So that can be quite challenging.
Oh, so that would even be for a box lunch? Well, I mean, yeah, because you have to do that for the box lunch. But I mean, I'm thinking also when you go to the grab and go portion of a hotel and you've got those salads is prepackaged, like, hey, I'm going to take the salad and take it back to my room. Yeah. You labeling on all of that because
so if it's prepackaged, then yes, it has to be all labeled. If you actually selected the items to go into that salad, so if you were given a container and you could put them in and seal it, then it goes back to they need to have allergen information for the buffet presented. But anything that's got a lid on has to be fully labeled with every ingredient. So yes, there's a lot of trip hazards for us to fall into, but it's tricky.
Yeah. So I'm going to stick with that topic for a second. So there's a couple of people, that I've spoken to recently or heard third parties saying, hey, we're not going to do this anymore. And this is statewide. This is US based. Not there. Like, we're over these allergens, we're over these different dietary restrictions, or somebody said, we're just going to let our staff provide the information verbally to our attendees. Those two things reek lawsuit to me.
I'm surprised. Yeah, we've had to spend a lot of time on this, and I think we've got fairly robust systems in place now. And I think that makes us one of those, let's put it into a different perspective. If you had a venue in the US that was doing what we're doing, I definitely believe your customers would have a hell of a lot more confidence in you. So you would find that work will pay off. It's not going to be a direct one. You're probably not going to have people coming up to you and going, we're choosing you because of that. menu, but their delegate feedback's going to be increasingly better. And the fact that they can come to a venue and make choices based on the information in front of them, because we know that the younger people today, they don't communicate in the same way. They don't want to speak to people. They don't want to raise their hand. They don't want to have to go and find a waiter. They don't want to have to go and find that person to ask that allergen information. They just won't come back to you. Or they just, if you're charging, they just won't spend very much money with you. And ultimately, we want you to spend as much money as possible while you're in our facility. So that choice there as one is probably going to give you a lesser booking opportunity from those bookers. But going back to your point on lawsuits, I think, yeah, you're going to put yourself in a very tricky position indeed. And I suppose also putting your team members and your staff in that position that they may have to deal with these situations, because if you've ever had to deal with anybody who goes into anaphylaxis shock, it's not a nice experience. It's something that can take a bit of time to get over. You don't want a reputation for that either. We all know any negative press in our industry when it comes around food is going to massively impact your revenue and your potential profits and long term as well. So I would definitely encourage anyone, it's worth putting the effort in. Like, we have to do it by law. But, you know, even if we were on the cusp of some of these laws, I think we would do it so that we could stand out and say to bookers, as well as the fact that our guests could feel included when they're making choices on food. And again, we have to do this on beverages as well.
Okay. Well, and it makes me not laugh, but it makes me think a lot of the articles that I see that of restaurants, or mostly restaurants, have been sued are coming from the UK because you do have these laws in place, yes. Right? And,
that's right.
And even there was one story on a woman who ordered a beverage at a bar, which had food, and they had labeled everything on the food and beverage on the food side, but they hadn't labeled the bar menu side. And she drank a drink that had raw egg in it, and she was allergic to egg. And I mean, so that does come into play in that, but I want to take it not from that perspective. I want to take it from that, like you said, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to create inclusion.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And just because like I said to you, so you want to be able to go somewhere and make, I don't have any allergies. I don't have any dietary requirements or anything. When I go to a restaurant, I can choose anything off the menu, but I appreciate that is not the case for everyone coming into our restaurants or eating in our buffets. But what we don't want to do is create a situation where they can have one thing, or they can have a couple of things that are always the same. And in many places, that is the case. It's like the vegetarian option is the fruit salad, and then that's it. And yeah, exactly. So, but also that gives you the opportunity to check your menu. So if you're doing allergens and you're doing matrices and you're checking them off and you're doing calories, it was like, we found we were doing some of our dishes on our menus, and when we calorie counted them, even we were horrified. We were like, oh my God,
really?
No one's going to eat this again. So we were like, right, that needs a change of recipe, or it needs to come off the menu altogether, because it was just, and I think that's what it was put there for. These things were put there in the first place to create awareness for the guests, but also we found it's great awareness for our chefs and for us as operators to say, look, our menu's not balanced enough. Our menu doesn't give enough options to people. And like I said, I think we found more and more with bookings that are coming in, they're asking for sample menus, hence why we post sample menus now. We don't commit to menus unless someone's got exclusive use or they've got their own building, because we do have a lot of facilities where you're in a shared buffet area. And what we've done with that is we've just made the menu cover all the bases, and we've made it very clear, this is the sample menu for that venue. And what it's cut out is a lot of communication. So you don't get so many people coming back and saying, oh, we have this dietary requirement, we have this. We'll always cater to those, but we found if we've got a nice balanced sample menu, or 2 or 3 of them, and its likelihood is you get one of these when you're attending our conferences, then I'd say about 50% of the inquiries we used to get in regards to food has gone away. And
that's a lot of savings of time and energy.
Yeah, and I think you don't value that because you can't see it as a tangible at the beginning, and these costs are hidden, again, because they're hidden in your sales team, they're hidden in the time that they take to take a booking, and I think we don't always look at those costs. We generally just look at the bottom line, and we don't say, what are the time-saving efforts? And what, by making these changes, yes, it's going to cost us a little bit now, and it's going to take chef a few days to put this together, but what is the long-term saving? And I think that's where it comes into. We've tried to do that over a lot of projects. It's not just food. We do that with a lot of stuff that we operate through. We look, what are the questions the sales team are getting asked? How do we provide them with the information that they can just then, and if anything, being able to go back to bookers in a short period of time with the correct information and with options, rather than saying, I'll have to come back to you, is obviously, that gives them a confidence as well.
Well, and with timing of things that I've heard from planners recently, just on social media posts, is like they're not getting their BEOs until like 4 days before they come on site, or just because the volume of meetings are coming back and we're not fully staffed back, it's taking a lot more time. And so I think the steps that you've taken are time saving in so many perspectives, from the chef, the salesperson, your on-site meeting planner. It helps the booker as well save time.
Yeah, we did a silly project. We did it in August last year, where we spent the time to take a photo and lay up every single room in every capacity. And I know that might sound weird, and a lot of businesses may already have that. Most companies produce a capacity list and say, we can do meeting rooms in this size and this size. But what we did was we said, look, we'll take a photo in every single size so that a booker can see, if I've got 14 cabaret that day, I can see what it looks like in that room. Because the team were getting asked these questions constantly. And I think that's where we've gone with food as well. It's like, what are the questions you get asked for? And if you're constantly getting asked for extra vegetarian menus or extra vegan, our menu's not sufficient. So we need to change it to do something with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the fact that you're listening to those questions, because instead of having to go back to chef and saying, okay, chef, how many what do you have vegetarian wise? This is what we've got. Taking the questions that your planners and your sales teams are getting from bookers is, that's smart. That's just like your FAQ section. Yeah. Your FAQ section should be long and zillion questions long based on what people ask, because you never know what people are going to ask.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to go back to something like 10 minutes ago that you said about the power. And you said that you're switching from gas stove to electric stove. Yes. And which is huge in and of itself, because thinking about chefs cooking, you always, it's like turning up that flame and like positioning the flame to get the right thing. And I think I mentioned to you, Carla Ortiz out of Puerto Rico. I interviewed her a couple of weeks ago, and she is a chef. She has a restaurant in Puerto Rico, and she has one 4-top electric oven.
Okay.
And she's cooking everything for her restaurant, and she does about 120 covers a day on that one stove.
Yeah.
And which blows my mind. But has chef welcomed that electric stove?
Yeah, it's the tricky one, because I think we're fortunate enough to work with chefs nowadays that are quite open to changes, and we are anyway. I know that that's probably, I've worked with plenty of chefs that wouldn't. But it's, what's happening? So when we've got a piece of kit that's dying out that we need to change, or we're redoing a kitchen in any way, shape or form, whether that's a full-scale refurbishment or it's just a piece of kit that's dying, then we're swapping it out to electrical. And we're looking at technologies and what we can do, because your chef will always tell you that they want the flame or they want a char grill and stuff like that. But the way technology is coming on nowadays, with everything that's available on the market, there's so much good stuff out there. We try and keep up to date. We try and go to a lot of shows. We try and make sure that any technology we're putting in is going to work, and we get the chefs to go and test it. And we've got a couple of companies that we use over here that we've built up good relationships with, and they do have trial kitchens that we can send the chefs to, and they can use to fun, because until the chefs see it, they'll always tell you they want gas, and that's always the way. But part of our long-term plan is to do it that way. And when we do taste testings and things like that, you would have no idea that it makes any difference. And one of the biggest things is we've noticed over the years when it comes to kitchens is our biggest use of energy on site, apart from maybe our swimming pool in our spa. Other than that, our main energy use is in our kitchen, because they're running from they're running from 6 a.m. till 10 o'clock at night. You've got ovens running, you've got the extraction fans running, you've got everything going full pelt. And chefs have a tradition, well, I know from experience from here, they'll come in the morning, they'll turn a few ovens on, they'll get them all warmed up and bits and pieces like that. They'll have everything running, they'll have the stoves running and bits and pieces. But, as we know, with induction tops, you can put something on and in seconds it's at full pelt. And we've just installed now, I think we've got 2 new 20 grid big rational ovens going in that are electric. So we used to be on gas, we're putting them onto electric, but they have self-cleaning cycles. They heat up themselves. They'll do different temperatures at different heights. So the energy efficiency on them as well is like so much better and so much more efficient. So it's just, we do look at everything we put in and go, what grade of efficiency is that? Because that's quite key to us as well. It's a small thing, and I know a lot of people do it, but it is key to trying to reduce down that. And it's all at the end of the day as well.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting to watch you measure, like, hey, we replaced this stove with an electric stove, and this was our electric bill. when we have the gas and this is our electric bill now, or gas bill and things like that, to monitor. That'll be a huge white paper.
Well, we have in place already, we have a system which measures which measures a select number. I say select number, it's probably about 50% of our boards. So we can see when the spikes are, what they are, what kit that's falling onto, and how then we can adjust it. So we are currently monitoring as we put new kit in, what the impact is on that directly, because sometimes within a month, obviously weather in this country can have big impacts on your energy bills. But yeah, so we're just going to monitor that and see how it goes. But we've been doing that for a couple of years now, and we're just vastly seeing improvement on the kit that we can put into. But that's everywhere. That's the air conditioning units that we put in across the board. Anything we do in our spa, because our spa is a massive use of energy. So any equipment that goes into there, we can monitor and see what's going on. But yeah, kitchens, I'm sure everybody knows, but kitchens are a massive use of drain on your energy bill. Yeah.
Well, and Carla put in, just because something you just said, Carla is on electric because in Puerto Rico, there's lots of hurricanes. Okay. And she needed to be able to have a generator to turn it back on. And she's cooking through, she's survived 2 different hurricanes in Puerto Rico and things like that. So it's really kind of forward thinking in a way, right? But also survivable, right? Yeah. Sustainable. That's a good word. It makes our company sustainable. So one of the things in the focus areas on your website about your plan is our environment, our people, and our community, and that fall under the 3 sustainability things. And one of the things that's related to food that I love that Chef Corby told me about or you told me about, one of you did, was the People's Pantry.
Yeah. So
you talk about that?
Yeah, I'll talk about People's Pantry. So it's something we're continually working on. So this kind of goes back to our full circle food waste. So yeah, we'll put plenty of buffets out, plenty of restaurants, plenty of a la carte menus. We do festival food. So we have a whole range of offerings here because we do so many different events. So step 1, we've spent a lot of time, and Glenn, who's our resort head chef, has been with us for 20 years.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's been here a while, and he's very passionate about the skill set of the chefs to making sure that everything they're using, they're looking at ways to, 1, reduce down on that general waste that we can't do anything with, and then how they can be creative and then using that for sauces and on the pasta, onto the pizzas or anything like that, if they can use it for stocks and things like that. So all those basic skills have been taught and they've been passed through. Then you've got things that, say, we put out on the buffet that don't actually go out on the buffet. So anything we put out on our buffets, we generally can't reuse because it's after 2 hours of being out, it actually becomes almost a write-off. Anything that's not gone out, that's been kept in hot holding or has been kept in a safe environment, then we would look at, the chefs look at how do they adapt the menu for the next day and how do they reuse any of those items and creating them into sauces, creating them into jacket potato toppings, or just being creative with what they can do so they can adapt. And again, we put out 90% of our menu and we allow some scope for change. But then the next layer of that is what we did was we introduced the People's Pantry. So we're still going through quite a big cost of living crisis in the UK, and the majority of that has been pushed by the cost of food because we import a hell of a lot of food. I think we import 76% of our fresh produce in the UK because we just can't produce it because of the temperature and the weather. It's just not practical enough. So that obviously then drives up the rest of the cost of food throughout the UK, and that's had a massive impact. So what we've tried to do is say, look, we've got all this food coming off our buffets, we've got this bits here, anything that we can give to our teams, and what we do is we portion it up. We have a fridge allocated next to our clocking machines, next to our kitchens in all 3 venues. And what happens is the chefs will portion anything up, they'll pop it in the fridge, and on the side of the fridge, because it is packaged, it would have to be labelled. We've kind of done a little bit of a workaround where we don't put any lids on it, we don't close it, and what we do is we put the allergen matrix from the day next to the fridge. So anything from that day goes into this fridge. And then as people are leaving throughout the day, they can come in, check if they've got any dietaries or allergens, and then put a lid on it and collect it and take it home. And then within that, we've sent out a little waiver to the entire team to say you need to make sure you're either freezing it when you get home or you're cooking it within 2 hours of taking it out of the fridge, and giving some guidance. And at the moment, we're probably putting about 40 dishes a day in there, so probably about 40 portions a day. And there's been some good uptake on it. We're trying to push it as much as we possibly can because we only put this in about 3 months ago. And what we're trying to do is just give it some more push, because I think it's one of those, it's a really good one. And those that have started to get involved in it really enjoy it. But we want everyone to feel that they can take it. And I think it's just creating a culture around that this is something that you're actually benefiting us by taking this and not the other way around, because we don't have to then put this into the composter, which is fine, but we do want to reduce down that food waste that goes into there. Can't be an excuse just to put it all into the food. So we want to be creative in what we've done, but to be able to give people some pasta bolognese to take home at the end of the day, or some chicken breasts, or some items off the breakfast buffet to be able to take home and eat that day or consume the next couple of days if they've frozen it, then I think it's a really nice thing to be able to do and a really nice thing to be able to say. So yeah, we called it the People's Pantry. It's been really well received, and yeah, it's going really well.
That's awesome. And it reminds me, and I think I mentioned this last week when we were at the IAC conference, is that there was a planner I met who does incentive trips, and she was in a venue or an event in Spain, I think it was. And at the end of the event, she found one of the food service people crying while she was dumping food in the trash. And it was like filet mignons. And she's like, what's wrong? And she's like, I don't have the money to buy this for my family at home. And this is prepared but unserved food that I'm having to throw away. Right. And just think about thinking about the three pillars of people's community and environment. I'm like, one, if they would allow that woman to take that filet mignon home or whatever it was, you're saving it from the landfill, you're providing to the community and to the people, right? Yep. And just that up level of goodwill, but also in so many different ways of sustainability in that.
Yeah, I think the one thing, because when we first looked at this, I think the first thing that came out, and I know a lot of companies just look to food banks and they look to local communities to send juice to. It kind of became, and at the end of the day, we're still a business. So let's not kid ourselves. We still got to make a profit. Otherwise, we can't pay the people that come to work here. So it's still got to be a sustainable business from a financial perspective as well. And it was made significantly more difficult with the introduction of things like Natasha's Law, because anything we were then sending off to a company, we had to package up and fully label. There's the fact, then you may well have to supply frozen packs for that to be taken away in, because they were then distributing it to another person. So it did become significantly harder, to the point that we contacted a few companies and we found this was going to cost us a lot of money. And that would never deter us from doing something that was positive. But at the same time, it was like, well, why don't we do this for our own team? Because if we can provide this to our own team, then that's a benefit as well.
Right. Because what if one of your team members is a single mom, right? Precisely. And she doesn't have time to go home and cook kids, and because maybe she also has a part-time job, doesn't have time, and this People's Pantry could feed her and her kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And not if she took advantage of it every single day, but even maybe 2 or 3 days a week. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's a little gesture, but it goes a long way, I think.
Right. Yeah. It's like, in my old corporate job, it's like, do you want to get a cash bonus? Do you want to get a gift certificate at the grocery store? Do you want a bag of candy or something? I'd rather have the thing for the grocery store, right? I mean, I think food is so much more valuable than people take it to be.
Of course, without a doubt.
Right, exactly. Okay, so I'm trying to think which one. We've tackled food waste. We've talked about tackling. Is there anything about food waste that you haven't brought up that we need to know about? How you tackle it?
I think, like I said, we've tried to. The only thing I would say is, one of the things that we do quite well with our bigger clients, or any clients that are going to be with us for a while, that we think, well, we're going to have to put a lot of food, we're going to have to cook a lot of food for these people, is we'll normally produce menu packs, and we'll make a point of having a Teams call or inviting them to site, because we found that way they're not turning up on the day and going, we've not got enough of this, or you've not covered us in this area. We make sure that we've got a pack that we can work to. And it quite often, bookers don't look at the whole perspective of the event, and they don't make sure that the menus are covered in the evenings as well as the day, and they're not overlapping. So we do a lot of work on that. And I know that's quite basic, but it's quite key. One of the biggest challenges I've had in the last year is obviously the rise of the vegan options and menus has been huge. And we've seen that come through a lot of the case. But where we've had to educate bookers is, we get a lot going, we want a plant-based menu, or we want a vegan menu for a day or 2 days and things like this. And we've had to try and say, what is the reason why you want to do this? What is the method you're trying to create? Because we have found they generate a lot of food waste, because they either don't communicate this information to their delegates, not all delegates want to be on a plant-based vegan menu for the day. They're quite happy to trial it. And if they haven't informed them of what's going on, what we tend to find is people don't eat too much at breakfast because they're planning on having a bigger lunch because they thought, oh, no, I don't like a lot of this. A number of the items are quite poorly supplemented on some of the menus. We're still seeing really poor breakfast options. There are some really good ones out there, and chefs have to be creative. But we're not a vegan restaurant. Frankly, one of our head chefs is two of his family members are vegan, so we almost get him to write any menus we've got because he has that perception that we just don't have. Even when we try, we don't look at everything the way he does because he has to cook it every day, which is also key. But yeah, we've had to try and educate them and say, look, if you want a vegan menu, that's fine, but what are you trying to achieve? If it's just because you want a low carbon footprint and it looks great to you on your booking form, let's talk about other ways that we can do that. Because what you don't see is the hidden message behind it all, that we're throwing away 50% of the food items. Easily would be getting rid of that, because I think people have less, and if they don't want those items, then they generally just don't eat those items. So that's one of the biggest challenges I've found over the last year or so, is when companies are coming and saying, we've got to have a vegan day, and we've had to say, but why is it you want to do that? What is the message you want to create? And if you want to make it more of a vegan heavy menu, that's absolutely fine, but let's be careful when we don't go whole hog on a whole plant-based day or anything like that, because we end up with quite a lot of food waste.
Well, and you would never have thought about that, but it does make me think about a couple of conferences that I know have done it for lunch, and people have gotten up and walked out because they weren't expecting that, and that plate then gets trashed.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. And I did find one thing that Chef said to me when we were chatting last week was that you're getting pushback from vegetarians who are being forced to eat vegan because you're trying to accommodate the vegans and vegetarians for a dish.
Yeah, so originally when we started, we've obviously learned and adapted over a period of time that I think when veganism started to, if that's the right term, I apologize, when it started to become more common and more required in menus and popular, I think what a lot of venues did was we just went, well, we just put a vegan dish on the menu, or we'll put a couple of vegan dishes on the menu. And the vegetarians, they're covered because they can eat those dishes. But obviously they've got requirements where they want dairy items and an egg or whatever it might be, and items into those dishes. And so they're not satisfied with those dishes. So the throwback is that they don't want to have to supplement into those regions. And I suppose that makes perfect sense, because we wouldn't want to be in that area as well, because in theory, a vegan menu kind of suits everybody, doesn't it? Regardless of it. So we were getting a lot of pushback on that. So we have made a really big point of making sure that vegetarian and vegan items on our menu are well labeled, and they're separate dishes, and they're well catered for across the board. But I think I was saying to you as well last week, we're probably close to 40% of our menu is vegan/vegetarian. So,
oh wow!
And I reckon that's shifting more to 50% at the moment, especially as we get bookers getting more involved with the delegates and dictating to us what they want on the menus. But if we were writing a restaurant menu today for our restaurant here at the hotel, we would have to be 45 to 50% vegetarian / vegan options on those menus, because it just wouldn't cater otherwise.
Wow. Well, and the thing about the vegan stuff too is that you put the cheese on the side, right?
Yeah.
And so that does give that vegetarian the option to make their salad not vegan, right? Yeah. The hard-boiled eggs, the whatever else you want to put in there, the cheese. I mean, that's the big
thing with gluten though as well.
Yeah.
You know, when you're making sauces, when you're making bases and stuff like that, does it have to have it in? What is the advantages? Test it without, because if you can take it out, it saves the servers time, it saves people time on adapting menus, it saves your kitchen time. And I think it was yourself that raised the point last week, didn't you, about the restaurant in London that's gone completely gluten-free. But yeah, because Glenn, our resort head chef, is also gluten-free. So again, another advantage we have is utilizing those people to write your menus, because they've got insights you just can't create. They know what to look for in a menu, and they know what puts them off. So that's always really useful. I definitely recommend, if you've got anybody with any allergens, use them when writing your menus, because they just have a perspective someone like myself can't guess.
Exactly. And it reminded me, was it our conversation, and I need to call up Glenn and we can have a gluten-free conversation, but it was the Asian dishes and how somebody on the team was from Thailand or something, right? And brought them in to make those menus because they didn't know the culture behind it. And you can make, or even if you're just trying to make sushi, bring in somebody who's got that skill and the talent to do that.
Yeah. Because they've grown up with that. And whether that's a cultural thing or a dietary thing, they've grown up with that. They know what to look for. They know what they're... And so they've got... they can represent what your customers are looking for. And we've always tried to do that. To someone, what level you are within the business, you can definitely add value that no one else can because you've got those experiences. So why would you not use them when you're writing?
Right. Okay. So I have two questions to close this out. So one of those things is, with all of this stuff that you've done, managing food waste, incorporating these dietary things into it, but also just your sustainability, have you seen your bookings increase because of that?
Oh, well, I'm fortunate enough to sit here to say, look, we're on for a record year this year.
Kudos.
Yeah, we're looking at business that we're hand-picking business now, which is a great position to be in. We're driving rates because of availability. So again, it's difficult to put one finger point on what all of that is, but it's a collective of everything that we've done and trying to make ourselves visible, making sure everything that we do is visible to the customers and giving them easy choices, as I'm sure is benefiting us over and over again. So, yeah.
Okay, so the last question I have for you, which is one I ask everybody, is talking about all of these things, incorporating your environment, the people, the community. What does a safe, sustainable, and inclusive experience look like to you, food and beverage wise?
Okay, so it's a really interesting one. I think I was trying to encapsulate it into a very simple answer because you were kind enough to give me this question in advance. I was like, I think one of the things we've tried to do is inform the team, train the team, and engage with the team as much as possible because they're the ones on the front line. So they're the ones that get asked all the questions and bits and pieces like that. So for me, it's always about giving the delegates the experience that they kind of don't have to seek questions or answers, or they don't have to come and find anyone, that they feel that they can make choices based on the information that's in front of them. And in order to do that, we've empowered the team with the confidence that they can answer those questions and be empowered to make decisions, because there's nothing worse than going somewhere and asking someone who has to ask someone else, who has to then tell someone else, and bits and pieces. And you know what it's like. By that point, you just go, I just won't bother. And so we've definitely tried to empower the team to have as much possible decision-making as they can. And then when we're putting anything out there, it's going to be informative, it's going to be clear, it's going to be concise, it's going to be simple, that I can make it a basic decision. So whether that's food, whether that's the meeting room space, whether that's how to use the AV in the meeting room, it's very clear what we offer, it's very clear what we do, and it's very clear how we can help you if you get stuck with that, with anything that you need to do. And again, when it comes to the food and beverage aspects, we try and cover as many dietaries and allergen information on the menu, but we try and get to it before that. We'll sample menus on our website, sending out information to the bookers and just saying, if you've got anybody with any special needs or anything like that, that we can cater for when they're here. If they don't feel confident speaking to chef, then we'll have somebody come and speak to them on their arrival or at reception or something like that. We create that environment that they feel confident in the people that they're speaking to can deliver what they need, and they don't feel different, shall I say, or they don't have to feel in any way that they're standing out from anyone else. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but yeah, we've tried to I think the biggest focus is empowering the team to make decisions and being clear and concise with our information that we've got available.
Oh, no, I love that. And communication is key. And across the board, from the delegate to the planner, to the chef, to the server, to the bartender, it's really imperative that we have that communication. So thank you.
That's all right. Thank you.
All right, everyone, you can reach my friend Simon here. There is his email address. If you want to have any questions for him, he had said, please reach out to him directly. Yep. And then we were talking about sustainability, not just a buzzword. And I think we didn't even have to talk about that because you guys improve just by what you said. What you're doing is showing that it's not just a buzzword. It's part of your
something, it's a value for us. It's something when we're trying to embed in the team, that what we've definitely tried to do. I'll leave you with one thing before we go. In the last few weeks, we created an email group because we were finding it really difficult because we're on the floor a little bit at the time. I've got 311 employees here at Wyboston Lakes. They're seeing things day in, day out. How do they communicate that up the ladder? How do we make change? So we did a simple thing. We introduced an email group that's put up everywhere, and everyone can email that if they see anything, have an idea, or I think this could work. And they can pop it on that email. They can remain anonymous if they want to. And then at least we can discuss it. We can look at it and action it. We have a green team, and then they'll bring those to review. But we got 622 eyes out there we might as well use them. So we asked them to come up with creative ideas. If there's things they see, let us know, because
Oh, that's awesome. It's like when I'm checking out of a hotel room. Hey, if this plug doesn't work or this light doesn't work, I'm telling the front desk, and I'm not doing it as a complaint. I'm doing it as an eyes because your cleaning team doesn't necessarily touch every single thing in there and use everything when they're cleaning. They're there to make the bed, clean the beds, and
you go. And it's like anything, you go blind after a while because you see it day in, day out.
Yeah. So a different perspective is always good. Well, Simon, thank you.
No, thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. I'm so glad I got to see you in person. And now I'm just going to have to jump on a plane and come over and visit.
Come back to the UK and we'll look after you.
Okay, I will do that. All right. Everybody, thank you for listening. Next week, I'm very excited to have somebody from Delta Airlines on the call to talk about the amount of food they produce. 60 million meals a year in the air, which is mind-blowing. So I'm excited about that. But until then, stay safe. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, it'd be interesting if they had a food compactor on their planes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll have to ask her that. She's senior vice president of in-flight. So, okay. So we will talk to Kristen next week. And Simon, thank you so much for what you do. And,
thanks very much.
And everybody, thank you for listening. And until next time, stay safe and eat well.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.